phenomenon of fake news pretty early, and was envious of interviewing folks with more zeros next to their personal balance sheet. So got my CFA and was on the buy side covering tech for an equity portfolio for a number of years. And through that process, I got conviction that Bitcoin was going to disrupt many centralized institutions due to kind of a trust deficit in the world. And I noticed that the CFA curriculum was not keeping pace with my conviction and seemed to be focusing on things like ESG that didn't matter to security selection from my perspective. And I thought that the curriculum has kind of lost its way a little bit. So kind of a joke and a nod to my lack of alcohol for many years here as well. But I think the CFA program has adjusted, actually. It's like when a stock goes down too much, the management often pivots. Same thing when a token goes down too much. And I think maybe some of the credibility of CFA, they realized it was disappearing and have bolstered up the digital assets part of the curriculum, removed some of the ESG. So things are turning around. I actually just paid my dues again for the first time. And blockchain innovators on the West Coast, I think a lot of the kind of premier work so far has been done on the East Coast, and see an opportunity to make USC the left coast hub of digital assets innovation. So pleased to be in the fold here. Our interns from USC this year. Look forward to some closer collaboration.
It's phenomenal, and it is part of the reason that I've had the pleasure of teaching layered money and Bitcoin at USC over the last few years, and hopefully far into the future. So let's talk about bit bonds first. I haven't been covering it a ton on the channel because it is an idea in its infancy, and I like to look to the market for actual demand. So give us a sense of the idea of bit bonds, what you think of it, and how you think it might play out.
Sure. With the creation of the White House's strategic Bitcoin reserve, which right now consists of the coins which have already been seized from various kind of criminal investigations. There's a lot of effort on how to make that reserve sustainable, durable, and math. This could be a pretty attractive proposition if Bitcoin is able to sustain like a mid-teens compound annual growth rate, and if investors were to reward that the government with a lower interest rate, there could be significant upside from both the government perspective and the taxpayer or lender perspective. And it might be a way to kind of get Bitcoin onto the US balance sheet via the Treasury. There's a lot in the executive order that detailed the strategic Bitcoin reserve. There was a criteria that any accumulation would need to be quote unquote revenue neutral. So there've been a lot of kind of creative ideas as to how to do that. My reading of it is just because something is revenue neutral doesn't mean it can be done without legislation. So to acquire Bitcoin, with any magnitude, over maybe 100 million or $1 billion worth, it probably requires legislation. But maybe that legislation could be targeted at the Treasury market and allow the Treasury to hold Bitcoin. That might be enough to get a creative idea like this off the ground.
Where do you think we are in the process of getting this idea off the ground?
That's a very good question. The administration has been pretty light on details so far as to how exactly they will make those acquisitions and if there will be any. Largest buyers of Bitcoin, these corporates have bought more than 350,000 Bitcoin over the last 12 months. More than 100,000 of that has been added just year to date. We count 21 new Bitcoin treasury companies just launched in the last 30 days through June 11th. The the MicroStrategy's strategy has now been, I'd say, legitimized by a number of kind of cash-rich, slow growth corporates. That's for whom this type of strategy, I think, is most applicable. The benefits of this is that the equity capital markets are now wide open for anything crypto related. So after the election, a lot of investment banks started looking into underwriting these types of deals, and the kind of traditional Wall Street stock picker is now more open to these types of stocks. And you can see it in the performance of the Circle IPO, for example, which is up again sharply today. Um, if we look at the past cycles for Bitcoin, they all tend to kind of, the end of the cycle is marked by a leverage driven kind of blowout. Saylor often talks about this, that the convertible bond, there's a pretty long-standing strategy on Wall Street that involves buying convertible debt and shorting the underlying stock. And the hedge funds that are active in this trade, they don't want to get involved in a new name if that name isn't going to have some duration to it, where the bonds will exist and there'll be new issues over the next quarters and years. And Saylor's done a very good job of engaging with that community and feeding them new convertible bond issuance and, of course, new stock for them to execute on that strategy. And the volatility of the underlying MSTR equity has remained quite high. And that's really what these strategies play off, is the volatility of the stock. And that's why one of the worst things for MicroStrategy is like a flat Bitcoin price, because the volatility falls and the value of these arbitrage strategies diminish in that environment. So there needs to be persistence to the duration, there needs to be continued new issuance, and there needs to be relationships, direct relationships between the issuer and the portfolio manager, rather than creates value. It becomes the opposite of capital formation, it becomes erosion. So my strong hope is that companies who are pursuing a Bitcoin treasury strategy should adopt some safeguards now while the premiums still exist, and they should communicate those safeguards to the market. And I have a few ideas for them. One is that a company could announce that it will pause equity issuance if the stock trades below, say, 0.95 times net asset value for more than 5 or 10 trading days. The company could communicate that they will prioritize share buybacks in times when Bitcoin appreciates, but their underlying equity fails to reflect that appreciation. And they should also announce plans to initiate strategic reviews if the discount to NAV persists. And those strategic reviews might include mergers or spin-offs or sunsetting the Bitcoin strategy. It's almost akin to a type of living will that will give the equity buyer some confidence that they're not just going to get diluted to zero. Because there is temptation here, given executive compensation, if the incentives are not set properly. For example, of the type of country that has become more aggressive in mining Bitcoin. It's a country that has a loan from the IMF that needs to get rolled over. And when you can't pay back your IMF loan and you ask for relief, they usually say, yeah, we'll roll it over, but you have to do X, Y, and Z in return. And the X, Y, and Z usually involves raising taxes. And in the case of Pakistan, the IMF actually said to Pakistan, you need to collect taxes on crypto. And crypto is not even legal in Pakistan. So they were like, oh, well, we better, create a regulatory framework. They founded the finance minister started a crypto council. CZ joined the board, and then next thing you know, they announced that they're going to allocate 2 gigawatts of power towards mining Bitcoin and building AI data centers. So when this kind of globalist IMF comes into your country and tells you how to start running your business, Bitcoin becomes a very tempting negotiation tool in order to restore some sovereignty over your own domestic printing press, because as long as you have energy, you can mine Bitcoin, sell it for dollars every day. You don't need the IMF for that. And at the same time, you can always hold out the threat of like, hey, IMF, if you don't roll over this loan, we're going to go full legal tender like El Salvador. And they hate that.
Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and enabling post notifications for more content on crypto and digital assets. Check out our other videos and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your engagement helps with the YouTube algorithm and keeps the content coming. Thanks for your support. Enjoy the video.